stuff going.
Spread out and see the whole room.
I know that's the thing about population. You always expand to be equal balance, so to say. Yeah. So just real quick, last week, thank you so much, those who attended and participated and listened and learned. Great feedback. So really happy about that. This week, it's the same format. Those who have been invited up to the table to speak, man, just contribute. We really appreciate you being here. It's your experience that we're trying to draw off of. It is a skill share. It's a mind share. We've asked Mike to lead the discussion, but it is very open for participation. If you have a question out here, I have 3x5 cards that are enlarged slightly. You can go ahead and write a question and submit it. And if we have an open gap, we can jump into some of those as well. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So last week we just kind of, am I supposed to?
No, you were good.
So last week we just opened it up and went to what do we want to talk about. Of course, one of the things we talked about last week was the experience we have with the, I guess we'll call it a little bit of conflict resolution and how we might travel through there as we have different things happen, be it with clients or other agents and communicating and doing those things. But I think more than anything else, it's just a matter of hearing what kinds of things would you like to talk about and throw it out there. See if there's something that's challenging you in your business, questions you have, thing that seems to be holding you up, you keep hitting a ceiling somewhere, how do we get past it? Just what? Silence can be deafening.
We did have two questions that carried over from last week that we can jump into as well.
Yeah, can. Have you guys read the book Good to Great?
I read the summary.
Oh, you read the summary. It's actually a really good book. In one part of the book, it talks about they call it the. I'm not going to spit it out, but it talks about giving an example of the crafty fox. You know, the beautiful, fast, smart, crafty fox, and a hedgehog. It's actually called the hedgehog effect. But and talk about a hedgehog. Anybody know anything about a hedgehog? So a hedgehog is kind of a blend between an armadillo and a porcupine. And they kind of waddle along on the ground, nothing fast. They do the grub thing, you know. And so this fox has figured out that there's this hedgehog that every day goes from where its little hole is off over here to eat. And so every day the fox is scouting out a different spot to jump the hedgehog. And the fox is sneaky, finds the spot, is always hiding, is always quick and everything else. And so another day comes along and the crafty fox has come up with a different strategy than he's ever used in all the many days before. And so the crafty fox is waiting there, and along comes the hedgehog, and the crafty fox is leaping out, and the hedgehog sees the fox and thinks to himself, again, and promptly curls up into a tiny little ball, which is like a steel ball, quills pointing outward, and the fox makes a hasty retreat and takes off. So the moral of the story being that the hedgehog is really, really, really good, in fact, great at one thing: protecting itself. That fox has 98 different strategies, different positions, different things it's going to try, but its strategy is never the right strategy, and the fox never gets good at just one, never keeps trying the same strategy over and over again until they get great at their strategy. That fox, so every time the fox tries something different, the hedgehog rolls up a little steel ball, knows it works, and is great at it. Fast at it, and great at it, and quick at it. And so creating that correlation to our business. So how often in our business are we bouncing the ball, going in different directions, trying to be to satisfy a little bit of all, but be a master of none. And if you were able to get laser focused and even going back to the book with one thing, what's the one thing that you can do? And of course, the one thing, that's a little bit deceiving, isn't it? And when you read the one thing, does it mean you're only doing one thing? Does it really mean that?
No.
It really doesn't. Because Gary, of course, is the master of the 135, right? He's a master of that, which means you've got to have different things inside different objectives within your one thing. It's the same idea. So when we think about our businesses, what do you feel like there's anything that's in your way? What are you experiencing now in your business? Any of you experiencing in your business that you just keep hitting it, you just can't get past it? Business is perfect, no troubles at all. Seriously? You guys got nothing?
Converting leads to prospects.
Conversion. Okay.
Focus on required things you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Focus and follow up. So so one of the things that came up last week was follow up, and conversion is definitely a big deal, and so much of what we do really goes back to what we talked about last week, curiosity. I find that most of the time we're busy trying to convert because we don't want to be converted or are not going to be converted. So one of the secrets in conversion is flushing out who doesn't want to be converted and just letting that go to make sure that you focus your time on who does. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what stops us from finding out? I mean, there's nothing worse than we're more motivated to sell somebody's house than they are, or we're more motivated for them to buy a house than they are. What allows that to happen?
Fear.
Fear? Yeah. Fear of what? So fear of what?
Fear of not having business. I think that my hang-up is prospecting. On 45th and Lincoln, there's been a for sale by owner sign for a while. So I drive by and Dave's taking out some signs on it. And I thought, God, he's the master and for sale by owners. Well, I used to have the courage to knock on the for sale by owner's house. Dave just doesn't.
I haven't even talked to them. I just put a sign.
And so he's overcome that fear. And then, one thing with our Halloween party. So I go back, I start with the current year, souls. And then I go back clear to, I don't know, 2014 now, with souls, one at a time, and call those people if they're still around. And it's fantastic. People want to talk to you. They had a good experience. They want to talk to you, and so that's been an excuse to get out and do prospecting. Prospecting is my worst nightmare.
So with the prospecting, which is what Mike's talking about, in the conversion, to go back to our question, what gets us into a spot where we're working with clients that are less motivated than we are?
Hitting up the wrong leads.
Not
Lack of communication.
pre-qualifying them.
So lack of communication, what do you mean by that when you say lack of communication?
Well, I think we all can sense when that's starting to shift. Like we're driving it, they're not driving it anymore, and we're either fearful of the conversation that needs to happen, or fearful of like losing the business, but not just talking to them, being like, hey, I sense that like the gas pedal's been let up on a little bit. Has there been a change? Because a lot of times there's just stuff changes. and they don't tell you.
Sure. Well, in conversion, we're even talking about before then, aren't we? I mean, we're talking about, are they in our car? We're trying to get them in our car, or we're trying to get in their living room, or maybe they are in our car and we're out on about house 25. We wonder if they're ever going to buy a house. So what is it, again, what is it that allows that to happen? So I'm going to tell you, it ties back to what we talked about last week. It ties back to curiosity. It ties back to asking a question. And I believe that for the most part, we don't ask questions because we're afraid of the answer. We're afraid they're going to tell us that they really are not going to buy a house until the middle of next summer. And then we don't find out why they're going to wait till the middle of next summer to see if that's in their best interest. We just don't keep driving that, but understanding in the end that we have to be in alignment with their priorities. Do they have to be in alignment with ours? And so this is a huge thing. This is something that we tend to just not go there, to not ask the simple questions. So, do you want to sell your home? Well, okay. They didn't say yes, did they? What did they say when they say, well,
Not yet.
no, not now? That could be so is it a no, not now, or is it a no? There's some people that live in the house 25 years and they are going to die in that house. Their answer is no. We have to recognize that, or they do want to buy, and they're really going to get their credit fixed sometime.
One thing that I think is like there's a is fear, and the fear to change, and the fear to accept reality. Because some people, they think, oh no, I got a bad credit, I got a bad credit, and they come out 680, 700. They don't even know what is good credit and bad credit. And like you said before, when they're trying to sell it, well, they have been in the same house for 25 years. They are comfy, they know exactly, where to sit in the winter, so they are warm, all that stuff. And they don't want to come and see a big yard, but they don't want to work in heavy. It's just fair, but we are not strong enough to fight it.
Yes.
I think there's an equal, if not opposite, issue. It's not fear, it's desire. It's whether our desire is stronger than their desire. But first and foremost, as a client, you need to find out what their desire is. Because desire makes people do what they want to do, and fear will make people do what they don't want to do. If you fear, you're knocking on a for sale by owner. If you're not going to do it, if you desire to do that, you're going to go out, you're going to knock on it, and you're going to listen. That's on our side. For the seller, or even the buyer, if they're fearful, our job isn't to make them unfearful, but to give them the knowledge to empower them to have the desire to do what they should do. So it's a balancing act, and it's not a manipulation act, it's just an understanding. That's part of like you're saying, asking the right question, you're going to get ultimately the answer.
Well, conversion in and of itself is actually a very complicated topic. Because when people have objections, what do they really have? When people have objections, what do they really have?
Questions.
They have questions, exactly, Dave. They've got questions. And to those questions, do they believe they have answers, or do they have answers? And see, so that's part of what we have to do. So, conversion is also, when we talk about scripts and dialogues, everybody wants to go, oh, goodness, a script, seriously. But you have to know how to address things that come up. And if you don't know how to address them, it's very difficult for you to hear them, to really listen to them and dwell into what it is they want. And if you have team members, then communicating that further to where people can go there is crucial. So, but even further back than that, You can have all the skills in the world. So I want to go to the scripts and dialogues. You can have all the scripts and dialogues in the world. So I'm going to use Jessica as an example, not in a bad way, Jess.
I'm
Jess,
taking my.
Jess as the TL, as our team leader for all those years, did she know the scripts? Boy, howdy, if anybody ever sat in a room with her, did she know the scripts? Brett, did she know the scripts? Yeah, she knew the scripts. Did she have anybody to practice them on? It wasn't her job to have anybody to practice on, but my point is, she knew her scripts inside and out, but she didn't have anybody to practice them on. So this is another, you gotta have somebody to practice them on, right? So how do you get to where you got somebody to practice them on? It sounds fundamental, doesn't it? I mean, it really sounds fundamental. Because it is. It is fundamental. And even after 31 years, and Dale, how many years? Almost the same. What did Dale just talk about? My point is, do you ever get to quit? What happens when you do quit?
I've got a scenario that I didn't have the best response to as a script to respond to, and they still haven't made their final decision, but that I went and told them what their house was worth, and then they decided that because they're moving to Utah for a new job and not sure if it'll work out and may want to come back, so they're talking that they may want to rent it out. And I didn't give a compelling script as to why they should sell, other than the market's hot right now. I know what it is right now, and I don't know what it'll be like in a year or 2 or 3. But does anybody have something that could have just grabbed them and said, a script that said, okay, we'd be stupid to rent it out then? Because they still haven't made their decision, and I'd love to have a reason to call, but I haven't got it. Anybody?
Well, I was talking to Jim the other day, and he came up to the office, and I said, how's things going? How's business? He says, great. Buddy, everybody's struggling to get listings, right? He went on 3 listing appointments the day before, and he talked to each seller out of selling their house because it wasn't the right thing for them at that point in time. So I think you got to look at that, if it really is the best situation for them to move back in, is it?
They don't know whether they'll come back. In fact, I think they'll get down there and realize we don't need that place anymore. But
So often, again, this also becomes a question statement. So I don't know if it's having that rocket science script. It's identifying, so what's attractive to you about doing that? Well, what's attractive to us, we make an assumption of what that answer is going to be, right? Yes? Yes. So do you think they have concerns about doing that as well?
they do.
Have they been able to state it?
Yeah, they were like, well, what are we doing? I'm like, well, I manage some. I'm not sure if I want to do it, take on that place other than. So I'm trying to keep my foot in the door with that.
Sure. Well, it's even continuing to say, so what other concerns? So there's renting it out. What other concerns about it? They do have other concerns, and making sure that you address them. Just say which. So with all these options, which one's bigger for you? And so sometimes it's really, I think you made a good point, Dave, and this is that if we're trying to talk people into anything, it's going to have, the foundation is not firm. The foundation of your relationship is not firm. There's no, that unequivocal, I'm in your corner to do what's best for you, doesn't exist. And so you've got to make sure that does exist. And that's often, that can be walking away from business in the short term. It can be, but on the other hand, they have their house and they say that today it's a $350,000 house. Maybe we think the market's going to go flat for the next little bit, but it doesn't. And sure enough, they move down there in the spring, it comes back, and now their $350,000 house is worth $365,000. It's worth $15,000 more than when they left, and it's a better time to sell. With their situation, they've got the confidence, and you still have their business because you were there and you gave them sound advice. So see, they're not saying we won't sell. We're just saying we aren't sure we should sell now.
Yeah.
And so it's important that you hear that, acknowledge it, and let them know whatever you want to do, I'm here. Whatever you want to do, I'm here.
I find it interesting though when you say that Jim talked them out. It's a seller's market. Why are we my conversion ratio is, I've noticed this year is substantially lower, and yet it's a seller's market. So is it the inventory? Is it they're afraid of the fear of what's out there, or what they're going to have to do, or why are we not converting in a seller's market?
Well, his examples, I mean, it's all case by case, but one gal, the only reason she was selling is because she needed to pull some equity out. She didn't even know refinance existed, you know, and so it's just kind of consulting her and letting her know all of her options, and then with a couple scenarios that we practice, I'll go out on a listing appointment, and if somebody can get qualified for a mortgage with their existing home, I'm the first one to tell them to hang on to it, rent it out, start building a real estate portfolio, and start investing. And once you open that conversation up, you've opened up from one potential sale to now they could be a potential investor in your pocket for the next 5 years, picking up multiple properties. But you have a point, like, what's that? And you build the trust, and you have a point. I mean, it's tough because we're all starving for listings and homes for our buyers.
I think from the aspect of conversion, our objective is, Francisco, that if you do list your house, I'm going to call. That's our objective in there. If you need, Francisco, if you need any help, I'm going to put a call. You're calling me, your realtor. I'm your professional. Just like you have your accountant, you have your dentist, you have your doctor. I'm your realtor. And by the way, when you're talking to your friends, remember who is your realtor. So that they might use your realtor too, right? And have that same thing. So, you know, growth at that grassroots level is a crucial thing. And being focused, being client-centric on what they need and what they want and all those things, that's really crucial in answering those. And that's what expands, that's what creates an additional foundation and base to your business when that happens, because people will do that.
I think that's a really good point in the aspect of what Gary has been saying for probably the past 2 years. Is as we move into a new shifted market, the shifted market isn't necessarily going to be about a crash in the economy. It's a shift in how we do business. As technology has shifted into our business, we have to move out of functionary and move out of that functionary to relationship. You know, we have to focus on saying, do they say I'm their realtor? And they don't use anybody else, and they don't send their friends to anybody else. But for a long time, we've been focused on how do we get more listings, and you know that's kind of where we're at. But that change, we as agents have to fundamentally change, realizing the relationship is really the most important thing we end up with in the end, because we want 5 houses down the road. We want, you know, Brett's gal. If she may not list her house now, but we want her making sure she says if anybody else says to her they're going to list their house, they go, no, you've got to go to Brett. And that idea has to be the fundamental at this point, because
Sure.
Everything else can be replaced by a computer.
So, Mike, I don't know if we've ever really gotten to your question that you originally got to. I want to make the point that it's crucial in our business that we ask. I sat in a car with, so this was actually McKay Christensen is in my car. People know who McKay is. McKay will be taking over for Frank when Frank decides he's had enough. So he's the guy. I'm in a car with Frank, and we're looking for a house for him to stay in when he's up here in town. And I was talking about lead generation with him, and at the time challenges that I felt that I had on my team with lead generation and lead generation habits and the urgency of lead generation. And so I wanted to ask him about that as far as it goes for Melaleuca. And so he provided me some stunning statistics that I wish I remembered the aspect of it, but he talked about, I think the time, it was roughly 2.2 million subscribers. And of that 2.2 million, 2.1 million, or just over 2 million, came back in the previous month and ordered again, which sounded like a lot of orders to me. But his view on it was that if they'd lost 150 clients and all their lead generation activities had to replace not only the 150,000 that they lost, but had to generate more to sustain growth. And it was more than 2.2 million, but the point of his numbers were that the percentages sounded small. It was like 0.3%, 0.03%, something staggeringly small. But when it came out to numbers, it was big numbers, and then what they had to do with their marketing and his perceived weakness in their marketing and the lead generation activities. For anybody that has any contacts in Melaleuca, you will know that right now there are huge things going on in the marketing programs. They have got people coming in left and right. They're going to be driving an all-new technology-based, internet-based, there's technology-based, lead-driven system that they're putting in place. And so no matter what, you have to be asking. And I guarantee you guys, if you don't ask, the answer's already no. If you don't ask, the answer's no. So if you get back a no, not now, you're ahead. Sometime you're ahead. There are very few absolute no's out there. I got some clients right now. They've got a 2.5-year-old. Her name is Cecilia. I guarantee you, she never hears no. All she hears is no, not now. So we have to get that back. So be devoted to time that goes on your schedule to make sure that you're asking for business. Know your scripts. Jessica's getting to practice all those scripts that she knows. She's finding out what works about them in real life versus the twists and learning. So you be sure you learn those scripts so that you can listen to your clients, make sure you hear what's going on. Be their consultant. You have to be their consultant. That's what you're talking about, Dave, isn't it? You're being their consultant. You are focused on their needs, not your own. Focus on them, eventually yours will be taken care of. Find your ways that you can do that, and just be resolute. And I can tell you, in my opinion, the hedgehog, my story where I started off with the fox and the hedgehog, that's your lead generation. If you can become great at lead generation, at conversion and securing those opportunities, right? What happens the day that hedgehog doesn't curl up in a ball? The day. What happens? The day the hedgehog doesn't curl up in a ball. Fox wins. Be the hedgehog, not the fox. The moral of the story. Time?
Awesome. No, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for being here. If a question came up during this that you want us to address, please give it to us. We want to continue to improve this, make it more valuable week after week for you. So make sure and participate. The participation is awesome. There's been some gold nuggets to work off of here. So whatever inspired you and made you want to change, implement it today. Be that hedgehog. Have a great day. Great weekend. Thanks.
I'm gonna go roll up into a ball.
Yeah. That's just what
I
Oh, yes.